The World Health Organization and Russian health authorities are discussing the process for possible pre-qualification for its newly approved COVID-19 vaccine. The developments place into focus the importance of the pharmaceutical sector in the battle against serious pandemics. But has the industry created enough awareness about the various medications people are using during this time? Dr. Max Schurer is an industrial engineer and he joins us now. Dr. Schurer, good evening. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Firstly, how complex is the issue of the different medications being used at this time? And I imagine here that the big concern would be around some side effects that they may cause, but feel free to explore the further risks that may also come out of that.
Right. Thank you very much, Cathy, for having me. That's a really interesting question. I think in particular it's really important to consider the rapid development of new medications in response to this global pandemic. Particularly as we've heard, the vaccines that are being developed around the world. And really my field is pharmacovigilance, so it's monitoring of the safety and effectiveness of medications once they're on the market. So that's to say, once they've been through the robust development cycle and have been tested thoroughly, and then once they've been approved by a regulatory authority and they're provided for the public on the market, and tracking the safety and performance of those medications at that stage. So, of course, we need to have systems in place to monitor the effectiveness and safety of medicines. Especially in a time like this, where there is a global pandemic and there's the rapid rollout of new medicines and new vaccines in response to a crisis like this.
There seems to be a big question around the verification of what can be a vaccine during this time. Russia seems to have gone through the process quite quickly. Is that a cause for concern, or are you confident that the steps that would need to be followed have been followed, but perhaps have somehow just been expedited?
Well, before I need to say that I'm a doctor of industrial engineering and not by no means a clinical epidemiologist or medical scientist, but I know that there's, of course, a very robust and lengthy process that these vaccines go through for development. Typically, these things can take up to 12 years to produce under normal circumstances, and that involves various trials, various phases of clinical trials involving non-human studies, and then moving into human studies at very limited numbers, and then rolling it out to maybe up to 10,000 people, and once the benefit and risk ratio has been determined at that scale, the relevant authorities can give it approval, and then it can be put onto the market. So I think, of course, in these circumstances, regulatory authorities and pharmaceutical companies and the entire industry is really rallying together around this cause and trying to find a solution very, very quickly. I can't speak to whether one should worry about processes being expedited, but I'm sure everyone's doing their absolute best to find a solution quickly.
Of course, for consumers who would be at the receiving end of products such as these, and many would want to get their hands on them once it's available, what are the measures that are in place and the work that organizations like yourself do to ensure that people are not necessarily being sold a product that could in the long run have adverse effects on their health?
Right. So really, I think from the consumer side, there needs to be more awareness about what pharmacovigilance is. I'm sure everyone's familiar with receiving a new medication and finding the package insert inside that lists various dosing schedules and ingredients and possible side effects. But really, from my side of research, it's about getting the data out there. So once a patient experiences an adverse drug reaction from taking a medication, it's having the awareness and the means to report that to the relevant authority so that they can gather that information at an aggregate level within a country or an organized health program and really do the statistical analysis that's required to make informed decisions as to whether to pull a medicine from a certain market or not. And to continuously update that benefit-risk ratio for each individual product.
Sure. One certainly gets the impression that more often than not, pharmaceuticals would want to keep such information under wraps because that in itself may have an impact on the amount of product that they're able to sell.
Right. So this is something that I noticed in my research, and that's to say that there's so many different stakeholders operating in this space, and to perhaps oversimplify it, there are the World Health Organization, for example, that acts as the global watchdog. Then you have various pharmaceutical companies, some of them obviously operating in multinational environments, and then you have all of your governments and regulatory authorities. So really it's different stakeholders operating with different goals perhaps in mind, whether it be the mitigation of financial risk or the protection and promotion of public health, as you would expect from local governments, or the World Health Organization sort of doing the statistical analysis and keeping that keeping their eye on the entire global landscape. So it is a challenge within the space that these systems have to overcome, and that's how can we get this data, how can we aggregate this data together, and how can we have an interoperable system that is transparent and really helps with that statistical analysis.